Well, hello and welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, where I bring voices and perspectives from people who are making a difference for children's learning and development. I'm Rachel Stewart, and I'm passionate about connecting with people to share experiences and learn from each other how we can best support children to thrive. As founder and director of Practically Learning, I specialise in developing the capacity of parents and educators through personal development coaching and professional learning programs to build trust, to engage in effective partnerships. In this series of the podcast, we're exploring different people, support networks, and organisations who are able to provide a circle of support for you as parents as you navigate your way through the school journey with your children. You will learn from a diverse range of people how they can support you to guide your children to reach their fullest potential as unique and whole human beings. Today, I'm introducing you to Dr. Toni Lu. Toni describes herself as a nomadic, ex-gyno, cartoonist, sex educator, relationship coach, and advocate for Asian mental health. She helps clients detox from what she calls tiger parenting to create success, pleasure, and abundance on their own terms. Toni and I will be exploring her journey through her education and into adulthood and the impact of family on life choices and how to find the courage to create your own journey as a person to follow your passions and dreams. So I'd like you to welcome Dr. Toni Lu to the podcast. I'd like to officially welcome you to the podcast, the Circle of Support series, where I'm really exploring different ways that people are supporting parents and helping them to understand how to navigate the journey of education with their children. And today I'm talking with you about your own journey and the impact that your family, I guess, and culture and upbringing and all of those different things that influence our childhood and as we grow into adults. So we're going to be exploring that today. But what I wanted, I suppose, start with was really where your journey started, because you have traveled the world, obviously, and you're not necessarily in your home country anymore, and you've had all these different experiences, and that's what life is about, really, isn't it? And when we start as children, we start off as very inquisitive and curious and creative beings, and then we sort of move through the education system, and it almost stifles our creativity in some ways and our lust for life. But you've gone through a journey, as have I, where we've explored that lust for life again and trying to work out who we are and why we're here on this planet and what our mission is. And you've obviously done quite a few different things to discover who you are and what you want to do and who you want to be, and to just be, I suppose. And that's what it's really about, isn't it? Just experiencing life. And so perhaps you can start by sharing where your journey began as a child, and then we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome.
Gosh, where it started, I think I always was, I think we all are inquisitive, curious, playful, creative kids. So I always wanted to be an artist and cartoonist. I love Japanese anime and manga, but that was never nurtured or supported by my family. And I was really beaten down into, well, you have to choose a real career, like a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, classic traditional Asian tiger parent culture. And it was always straight A's. You have to jump through all these hoops. You have to follow and beat the education system, I guess, or play by the rules. And it was very, very limiting. And one day I just couldn't do it anymore. I was 25. I remember I went skydiving, and not that I'm an adrenaline junkie or anything at all, but I just was like, this feels so far removed from any kind of life I've ever wanted to live. It just felt like, oh gosh, pleasing my family wasn't worth it anymore. It wasn't worth losing myself. I felt dead already inside, and wanting to be there. It's like, if this is what being an adult, a responsible adult, or is really about, or what life is really about, like, no thank you. And
You just want to be
that's
a
really,
kid for life.
I guess so, yeah. And I guess I was seeing that many people can be, they can live this wonderfully vibrant life of joy and not irresponsibility, because there's a responsible way to approach play and adventure. And yeah, that's where my journey, that was a huge pivot. So I think everything else was building up to that point. And
Yeah.
that was 10 years ago now at this point. So I took another 4 years to save up money, finish my medical training degree just as a backup plan and logistics, get everything all figured out. And then I went. So I did it, I would say, in a responsible way versus some people are just like, had the realization, oh, I got to quit and jump off with no
Yes.
plan.
So, can you just explain to those people who are listening or watching? There's a lot of different terminology or terms or labels that parents have now, including tiger mums and helicopter parents, and all of those labels that the media mostly want to put on parents who are, I suppose, very invested in their children's education.
Mhm.
And in your case, it sounds as though there were certain expectations, whether they're cultural or whether they're familial. And I'm wondering where those expectations actually come from in relation to your culture. Um, and I suppose why you've chosen to focus really on the Asian families or Asian people who have been impacted by that culture. If you can explain what that culture is all about for our listeners and why it has such a profound impact on young people and what and how we need to change, I suppose. How can those cultural aspects of high expectations around education, even though we want to have expectations for our children and to do well and all that sort of thing, but what actually needs to change when it comes to supporting your child through their education without it being so, I guess, life changing in the sense that you're not actually able to be who you want to be or be who you
Mhm.
actually are.
Great question. Yes. So I think the root of a lot of that is, well, a lot of things. But in Asian culture, they're very much focused on the whole team. The whole family is a unit. All your generations, what you do affects and reflects on everyone else. And it's almost a kind of toxic, codependent enmeshment where you don't get a chance and you're not expected at all to develop your own identity or individuate. And it's just, they grew up with that. It's just passed down. It's like an unspoken rule or law. It's like, well, if they grew up having to listen to their elders all the time because it's like the longer you've lived, the more experienced you and wise you are supposedly. And so the cycle just keeps passing on, and so many people don't ever question it. And I've been the first in my family in generations ever to question it. And it could be because we moved to a country with different values, and then I had to learn, I was exposed to different values. Perhaps if we had stayed in China, I was 3 when we moved to the States, it was like, huh, yeah, maybe I wouldn't have noticed um, that it was just programming. But I think so many people who are in it, and I know it comes from a good place. It's like the tiger parenting, the helicopter parenting. A lot of it, I think, comes from that poverty and fear mindset. And it makes sense because China was a really chaotic and place. And of course, they were very focused on stability, like overly emphasizing stable careers and money too, and just for that sense of security. And so, of course, they were fixated on like, oh my, I don't want my children on the street starving, or I don't want them living at home with me indefinitely and not able to support themselves after I pass. So it comes from a very severe and exaggerated, but well-meaning. I think just like, oh, I really need to protect them. I need them to do well. And in their minds, there's only one way to do well, which is to follow that very traditional path. And it's hard because things that are more uncertain or creative paths, like being an artist, I mean, back then it was only 1% of people succeeded or were able to make a living. That's very terrible odds. Those are not good odds. Of course, nowadays the world has changed, and I don't know what those odds are now, but it's definitely not just 1% anymore. I know for coaches, I think I recently read it's like a 20% success rate. So that's great. And I think that's for, I don't know what exactly the metric was, but there's so many ways people are reaching an online audience. They're finding people who really resonate with their work. So you're not limited by where you live anymore. And there's all sorts of ways people can support creatives, like just donating $5 a month on Patreon or just subscribing to their YouTube channel, which is free for the viewers, but sponsorships and brand. Like there's just so many ways to make a living now. And I feel
There
like
are.
our older generations may not have caught up to that. So they're not really realizing, oh, it's not as unsafe as it was
Yeah.
back.
It takes a lot of shift in mindset, I guess, and a lot of courage to break through that tradition. So, how did you go about doing that in terms of, I guess, any parents who are listening who have grown up the same way and are parenting their children the same way and thinking that that is what is expected of them by their parents. And yeah, I mean, we learn parenting from our own parents, and that's why it's such a cycle. And it's really
Mhm.
hard to break that cycle. So, what did you need to do to be able to break through that? Being the first one of your family to do that, that must have been extremely challenging.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say I'm not a parent yet. I'm still looking for my partner, but I definitely plan to parent differently. Of course, it's easier said than done, though. I think what helped for me is really just doing my research and exploring and seeing, wow, there are all these other people living these other ways, just to reassure myself of the data that it's a different world now. And I think also trusting that children, every single person really is naturally gifted in something. And if you're just giving them enough support, and it's the unconditional support and secure base that they need to really thrive so that they'll just naturally create and excel. I don't think anyone would just be like, oh, okay, I'm just not going to do anything at all. Of course, some direction is good though. It's like it's so hard to parenting is so hard to striking the balance between not being too harsh and too hard and not being too soft and lenient and not providing guidance
Yeah.
either.
So, how would you describe what you experienced in terms of the, I guess, excessive expectations on you to go down a certain path? What did that actually look like?
You mean in the day to day of what
Yeah.
I experienced? Yeah, I think it was just a lot of like, yeah, it's like conditional love. They would give me the cold shoulder or be very critical and say, well, quite harsh things like, you're so stupid. How could you do that? What's wrong with you? Kind of a lot of blaming and shaming whenever I made any sort of mistake. And I very quickly learned that, oh my gosh, if I want to stay in mom and dad's good graces, I had to be a certain way. And the first time I got a bad grade, it was a 78 on a math quiz when I was 12, on a pop quiz. And they just I heard such an earful about it. And thankfully, mine didn't use physical punishment. I know some people, their parents slap them or like just there's physical reinforcement as well of like being a certain way. But just because you can't see the scars from verbal berating, it doesn't mean that it's any less harmful and damaging. And once
Yeah.
your self-esteem gets to be a certain way, then it's so low that you start to trust yourself less, and then it becomes a vicious cycle. And I really fell into that darkness. And when I was choosing careers, I was like, there's no way I can make it as an artist or what I really wanted to do. So I genuinely believed that, and I just chose medicine out of default for
Yeah.
that.
It's very much emotional abuse in many ways. And
Mhm.
I know it's probably challenging to talk about, but is there, did you need to go and see a psychologist to undo all the hurt and pain that you had and shame? I suppose it's a lot of it is a lot of what holds us back is shame and guilt. And
Mhm.
that is brought on by that programming that you mentioned before, where our brains are creating connections when we're children of a certain way of believing in ourselves or about ourselves.
Mhm.
So, did you seek out support to be able to rewire your brain, I suppose, and that's part of coaching and understanding. that none of those things are true and
Mhm.
that you had to actually create your story again? Did you seek support to be able to
Mhm.
do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really hard to do those things on our own. I've worked with both psychologists and coaches, uh, a handful really, and they had different specializations and different areas of focus. Like some were more somatic and body based because a lot of trauma is stored in our nervous system and in our body, and some were, as you said, the mind based, rewiring the brain, NLP, all those CBT. Yeah, there are so many healing modalities I tried, and I'm really grateful for all of them because I feel like they each worked on a specific part of me, and I'm integrating it all. So I think, yeah, it's really been a rewarding journey. I recommend everybody
It's
hire and
really life
support people.
changing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Transformational when all of a sudden you discover who you actually are and
yeah.
uh, deep, as a deep soul person and understanding how to navigate the human world, I guess. So
Hmm.
and now you're actually coaching other people and supporting other people who have been through the same sort of trauma. So
Hmm.
how is that experience for you? I know as a coach myself, and what led me down the path of coaching was a lot of trauma and having to understand myself and my thought processes and why I didn't feel happy and didn't believe in myself as well. I had a similar experience, but in a different way that was quite challenging for me. Emotional abuse by parents, who were completely unaware of
Hmm.
what they were doing and saying, and I think that's probably the case with a lot of parents when they are actually uh, speaking to you in a certain way and telling you things. There's a lack of awareness there.
Hmm.
So, how is it now, that experience of transforming people's lives? How is that going for you now?
Yeah, it's so rewarding, as I'm sure you also have experienced. It's like as we heal others, we also keep healing ourselves too, because there's commonalities and every person's story is unique, and it's sort of like you can just connect, and I get insights about my own life and journey too. So I really think coaching is such an amazing, like, co-creative container, and it's this intimate journey that we can go through with other people. I think it's one of the, yeah, just as you said, the most soulful, um, yeah, close and powerful ways that we can have a relationship.
Yeah. And so, in your coaching practice, do you help just people who have experienced trauma as children, or do you also help those parents who are challenged by their children, I suppose, wanting to do different things and wanting to forge their own path?
Ooh, I have not had parents reach out to me, but I think it's because, understandably, I'm not a parent yet. I think as a coach, I know you don't need to have gone through exactly what your clients have gone through, but I still believe that adds even more integrity, and wisdom and expertise to it if I've, like, actually done it myself, been a parent, been able to let go of the reins and raise my child in a more balanced way, then I can mentor and teach that to others. So right now I'm only working with the children of
Yeah,
overbearing parents for
yeah,
now, but I'm hoping in the future to expand to help both ends too, and the parents.
yes, that would be amazing, especially because you have experienced it yourself and just in knowing, I guess what advice to give to parents in
Mhm.
how they're managing their own behaviors and emotions and that sort of thing. So, in terms of your career, you've had quite a broad, I suppose, spectrum of different things that you've tried. Can you share all the different areas that you have explored and why it's okay to do that? I suppose you touched on it earlier where there's this mindset that you have to go down a certain path and be an engineer or be a doctor or be a something. And I actually
Mhm.
wrote about this in my first book, and just about having more of an entrepreneurial mindset and creating your own or designing your own life.
Mhm.
and just trying different things, because I suppose that's what our education is for in a lot of ways. It's trying different things through the education system. But once you're an adult, that shouldn't stop you either from trying different career pathways to see what suits you and having multiple different things happening at the same time.
Absolutely. Yes, I know. I wish we could stop asking people, so what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
I think a better question is like, who are you and what
Yes,
excites you and what does your life consist of? Like all the 10 million
definitely.
pieces of it. Yeah, I've tried so many things. As I mentioned, I was a doctor in women's health as a gynecologist until about age 30. And then that was 5 years ago. I quit and started trying a whole bunch of things, including my childhood dream of being that artist and cartoonist, drawing my Japanese anime manga style comics, portraits, illustrating children's books, and just doing random art as well. I think for me, I've discovered I really most love not the aesthetics of art or working hours on a piece to make it look pretty, but the storytelling, the messaging that it carries. And my messages are all to advocate for mental health, to advocate for social justice, women's equality, and marginalized groups. I found that those are really my two main missions and drivers, really just making the world a more fair and kind place, and like helping with healing and elevating so that people don't have to unnecessarily suffer. So I've done that in many ways. As I mentioned, I did the direct coaching one-on-one as well as group, and done online courses and classes too, especially for sex education is one area I'm really passionate about from my own experiences, but also it's been so taboo, especially in Asian cultures and a lot of other cultures too, for women, and bringing women together in women's circles. I run online events. I've done speaking gigs. I have my own podcast too. I'm going to have you on next week. I've written blog articles, done editing even, and even done applied for some voice work in like uh, for like acting as a character. And I genuinely enjoy, and translation, since I speak 5 languages or 4 languages, working on a fifth.
Wow.
But it's like, yeah, I'm loving that I get to explore all of me, and that my freelancer profile, you get to write, hey, here's all my skills. Like, let's chat. What are you looking for? And, maybe I could help. And if not, I'll refer you to someone else who can, or other resources. So it's been really fun. I can't even sum myself up either in a one sentence. I am just this multi-passionate soul who, I guess, creative at heart. Like, I'm a creator.
Yeah, I can so relate to that. I always cringe when people ask me what I do because it's really hard to explain. And
Yeah.
you've just summed it up perfectly. And it's just about re reframing our views, I think, of not putting people into boxes and
Hmm.
categories. And I think that in the past, maybe that's how our brains worked. And just makes it more simple for people to understand what you do, but not being defined by what you do. And, just being able to explore all those different passions and give this a try, give that a try, and how much growth there is when you do that as a person. How do you
Hmm.
think each of those experiences has seen your growth, your own growth development over time as well? I guess putting yourself in positions where you haven't done something before is always like about moving out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that in itself is exciting because it's really exploring those uncertainties that,
Hmm.
a stable job gives you that certainty, but how do you actually grow if you don't actually put yourself into those positions where you just give things a try that you've never tried before?
Yeah, that growth is, oh, yeah, that's really hard, and I think that's what stops some people from trying new things, or starting over, especially later in life. They just may feel like, oh, it's too late for me to learn anything new, or I just don't want to embarrass myself by being bad at this at my age. Yeah, it's really, I would say you nailed it on the head. That's the biggest thing, just dealing with all the feelings of imposter syndrome and self-doubt when we're trying something new. And it comes up a lot more in women than in men.
Yes.
too, I found, and yeah, just navigating that and like reminding, like connecting to that, no, these are the transferable skills. These are the skills that I've had and been honing my whole life. It's just the expression of them is can be different. But there's a lot of overlap. But of course, there's always a lot of new things to learn too in each category. And yeah, and like learning, because I think it's, you can think all you want about how you would like a certain job or field, and then once you try it, all these other things crop up that you're like never could have anticipated, and then figuring out how to deal with that. I think it makes you, yeah, more adaptable and flexible, like your brain more neuroplastic to come up with new solutions on the spot, and really,
Yeah.
yeah, more courageous too. You like learn to have a greater capacity for dealing with the discomfort of being a beginner or like being bad at something as you hone.
And embracing new experiences, like just yeah, like you said, being able to be flexible in your approach to different things and think different things that come your way through your life.
Mhm.
I'm really excited to hear about your women's circles because I think that we're in a really exciting time for women where, in a lot of ways, women are waking up to the realities of, I guess, the world that we live in and the way that we've been living, that it's
Mhm.
not necessarily conducive to being full women, like women as we are meant to be and as we are meant to live as intuitive beings. And obviously, that's how you've created your life, and I'm trying to do the same, where we are living through our intuition and what our soul is telling us that we need to be doing, rather
Mhm.
than what society is telling us that we need to be doing. So I'd love
Mhm.
to hear more about what you're doing with your women's circles. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. I was doing the women's circle with a co-facilitator, but she had a health issue. We've paused them for I think the past half year, but I'm happy to start them up again, especially in the wake of this travel summit I was just at for, it was called for Asian Wander Women, women who love to wander the world on their own terms, and so many entrepreneurs and remote workers. But yeah, in these circles, we were meeting once a month and with a different theme for each one, talking about, I mean, it's as many circles are, like a safe space. You can share anything and you can continue. I'm hoping it to facilitate lifelong friendships and connections with all the members, and to keep growing as a community. And now we do things like meditation together, breath work. My other facilitator is a Reiki practitioner and intuitive energy healer. And yeah, and just a lot of authentic sharing, and just, and I have different guest speakers too, or guest participants, and they can lead one. So if you're interested, or anyone you know,
Yeah,
it's a
definitely.
very like collaborative space for
Yeah.
people to come together and
It's
really share our power.
Yeah, it's absolutely a passion of mine, and I'm really hoping to do something similar in the future. So I'd love to be a part of your women's circle. So is there anything else that you'd like to share about the work that you're doing? And before we wrap up the interview today, and just to share with parents, I guess, any sort of advice that you would give to, I guess, work through their own challenges around the culture of um, adding pressure to their children or having those excessive expectations. Is there any other advice you would give to them to support them in, still being able to support their children in any way that they can, and still striking that balance around allowing their children the freedom to be who they are and to, I guess, guide them on the pathway that they want to take rather than the pathway that their expectations are putting onto them?
Yeah. I would say, well, first thing is just like going back to what we were talking about. We are not defined by the work that we do. There's so much to us that is to be celebrated. Like we have so much value we're giving out to the world just by existing, truly. And I know it sounds cliche, but when I did a presentation, I wrote down here all the ways that we impact our environment just by existing, even if we were some monk or nun in a peaceful place. Like you still make an impact because of like even just your choices in like what food you eat, like the people you choose to support, the things you choose to have, you're still making a decision in some way. And we all have a personality, and a lot of us, there's so much depth to us. Like, it's like, I feel like a regular practice for everyone should be at any age, just like list like 100 things about yourself. And then also all the hardships you overcame. I mean, that's part of human being, having the highs and the lows. It's like nobody can have a perfect life, yet I feel like society in general is putting pressure, especially with social media, to have this picture perfect life in some way, and having it all. And we all just feel like, what's wrong with us that we are so far from what we see? And so I think that helps just take off the pressure a bit. And I think really encouraging your child to embrace themselves too. Like, just know that all parts of them are okay. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to hide the ugly or messy or confusing or dark and mean, and like whatever parts those are, it's okay, because we all have them. And I think the better that you are able as a parent to model like, oh, your full acceptance of yourself and your imperfections, then it gives your children that permission to also show that too, and to have honest conversations about it. And yeah, and in terms of like, of course, instilling, so it's like, yeah, not what you say, it's what you do that matters more, for shaping them. And I think it's like a tough balance, because it's like, yes, you want them to just be like, yeah, you can just do whatever you want as long as you're happy, like, be free. And then I feel like there's also a sense of like, well, I think we have some responsibility to like figure out how to support ourselves and be self-sufficient to a certain extent. And so how do you also have that? But I think once you provide that base, you help them really explore, and then you encourage what they're naturally drawn to, because there's really so many infinite ways that we can live in this world and support ourselves. I mean, I think I've met some people who are even the most extreme. They live in these communities where you don't even need to worry about making money anymore. You just help out, you give. It's like going back to the barter system. I mean, we all have precious life energy to give. That's a very extreme form, but just know that like that's a way to just like allow yourself the freedom to explore and really discover who you are. Because the alternative is that if your child or you never figure out who you truly are, and really know your soul, that's so sad. That's like a life that was never really lived. You just, as that quote said, like, tiptoe your way to death in a safe but small way. It's no, we're here to play and expand. And yes, that involves messiness, but wouldn't we rather have that vibrancy rather than this gray life? I don't know, just my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on the exact word, which is encouragement. And yeah, striking that balance between allowing the freedom to be themselves and explore their passions and whatever path they want to take, and giving them some structure as well to be able to survive and take care of themselves. And I suppose that's ultimately the role of parents, really, is to learn to let go, but also give them guidance. There's probably a lot of parents out there who have thought about doing what you've done, and to go, I suppose, against and to break through that cultural barrier of parenting that way. Perhaps listening to this may have triggered some people, or reminded them that it's okay to be able to do that. So if they were needing some support around this, how would they actually find you and reach out to you to seek that support?
Oh, I would be honored to hear from them. Yes, they can find me in many ways on my website, drtooni.com, drtooni.com, or Instagram at Dr. Tooney, or Facebook at Dr. Tooney, or LinkedIn, and YouTube, Dr. Tooney, where we can post this guest episode as well.
Yeah, on your
Podcast.
podcast. So yeah, that sounds great, because I think that it's possible that, yeah, there are a lot of parents who think that they're doing the right thing, but perhaps they have been feeling lately, or once they do see this interview, that there is another way, and that they do want to be more encouraging of their children, and allow them to have that freedom, as well as navigating those, grey areas of disciplining and doing what their parents did for them as well. So I'd like to thank you for being so open and honest with me today about your journey. And I hope that this I hope that this story helps other people and helps other parents particularly to understand how to navigate the parenting journey, because it's not an easy one. And it is really exciting to hear all the different things that you've gone into and that you've explored, and that you are happy in your life now that you've explored and discovered who you actually are and who you want to be.
Thank you so much.
You're
I hope
welcome.
so too.
Well, I really hope you enjoyed this episode from our Circle of Support series of the podcast. If you would like further information about how to be in contact with our guest from today, please click on the links below. If you are a parent who is struggling with any of the issues we've raised in this episode, I invite you to book a call with me by clicking on the link below or scanning the QR code on the screen, so you can share with me what challenges you're experiencing, and I can share how I may be able to support you as you guide your child or children through their learning. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our Creating Connections podcast to continue to learn from myself and our guests how you can best support your child as they navigate their learning. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on the next episode in our Circle of Support series.